Everywhere I go today, I hear people talking about the rising cost of living. Everything from the houses that we live in, to the cars that we drive, to the groceries that we buy at the grocery store, the cost for all goods and services across the board have continued to increase. And as we head into the second half of the year and into 2025, I haven't seen anything that would lead me to believe that those costs are coming down anytime soon. So in today's video, I'm going to be going over the exact steps that I followed in order to save my first $10,000. Now, whether you're just starting out or you've already started down the path of saving money, I'm confident that the steps that I'm going to go over in today's video will be able to provide you with some assistance to help you get yourself to the finish line. Now, the first thing that you want to do is you want to set a clear goal for why you're saving this money. Are you saving this money to purchase a house? Maybe you want to save this money to take a vacation, or perhaps you want to start a business, or maybe you just want to have the money in your account to be able to have in case of an emergency, or if there's an investment that you'd like to jump into. Whatever it is, you just want to make sure that it is written down and it is visible, because that'll help to keep you motivated. One thing I like to do is I like to start with the end goal in mind, because that helps me visualize what it's going to take in order to meet my goals. And this actually helped me as I was going through the process of figuring out what it was going to take to actually reach the goal of saving $10,000. You definitely want to make sure that you're starting out with a good goal and a plan, which is going to be your foundation throughout this entire process. And the one thing that you have to keep in mind is that if you fail to plan, then you ultimately plan to fail. Now, the next thing that you want to do is you want to make sure that you're tracking everything that you spend. Now, you can do this by writing it down with a paper and pencil, or you can use one of the many free budgeting apps that are out there. But the main thing to remember in this step is that you want to make sure that you're accounting for everything that you're purchasing. And I would do this over a 3 or a 4 week period so you can get a good idea of where you're actually spending your money. Are you going out to eat or having Uber Eats 2 to 3 times a week? Are you going and getting expensive coffee 4 or 5 times a week? A lot of the things that you're purchasing will add up. And I can tell you, when I first started tracking over a 3 or 4 week period, I was surprised at how much money that I was spending on just junk, things I didn't even need. I mean, we ultimately have an end goal in mind of saving that first $10,000. So it is extremely important that you don't skip this step in the process, because this is going to give you a lot of visibility into where your money is going each and every month. So now that you've tracked your spending over a 3 or a 4 week period, and you've determined where you're spending a lot of your disposable income every single month, the next thing you're going to want to do is you want to create a budget. And you could do this by simply using the 50-30-20 model, which is an extremely simple way to budget. And the way that that essentially works out is that 50% of your monthly take-home pay goes to your needs. Things such as your mortgage, groceries, utilities, car payments, and things of that nature. The next 30% goes to your want. That's buying clothes or going out to eat. And then the other 20% is the money that you would set aside to save every single month. And like I said, that's a very simple model that you can quickly implement so you can get started with budgeting right away. And after following this budget for a few months, then you'll want to make sure that you're analyzing so you could potentially move some of the money that you have allocated in your wants budget. Maybe you move some of that over into your savings bucket so you can start to accelerate that savings process just a little bit more. So the next thing that you want to do is that you want to automate the savings process as much as possible. So early on in the process, when I started down the path of saving my first $10,000, I went into my online bank account and I set up a rule that said every time that I got paid, X amount of dollars went from my checking account over into my savings account. It was set up in that way, and I never had to worry about transferring money from my checking over into my savings account. And after a while, I kind of just got used to seeing that lower amount sitting in my checking account whenever I got paid, and I didn't even have to worry about it. So being able to automate that savings process helped me to put that on autopilot. So I knew how much money that I need to save every single month in order to hit my goal. And having that on autopilot was one less thing that I had to worry about throughout this entire process. And one of the things that it really did is it helped me to tighten my budget that much more, because I just took that amount that I was saving every single month, I took that completely out of my budget because I knew it was going into my savings account, and I just didn't account for that as I was updating and refining my budget each and every month. Now, step 5 in the process was cutting unnecessary expenses. So at this point, I had already analyzed how much I was spending every single month. I put my savings on autopilot, and each and every month I was going through and I was analyzing my budget to see where I could make cuts to unnecessary spend. And a few of the things that I cut out at that time was cable. I cut cable out because I wasn't watching much cable. This was back whenever people would save things on a DVR. Yeah, I'm aging myself a little bit with the DVR. But people would save things on a DVR and watch them whenever they could. The problem is that box would fill up and I never actually watched the shows. And what I did is I found myself either watching them on YouTube or watching them on some other subscription-based platform. So what I did was I canceled my cable, and I can tell you that I don't miss it at all. I have not had cable in almost 10 years, and I don't miss it at all. Now, I'm not telling you to get rid of cable or to get rid of Hulu or to get rid of your Spotify subscription. But what I am saying, at this point in the process, you should be going through all of the things that you're spending money on and cutting out the unnecessary expenses for things that you don't use. Maybe you have an Audible account and you haven't listened to a book in 6 months. Maybe you have a gym membership and you quit working out 4 months ago. Why are you still paying for that? That's something that you can go and make sure that you cancel. And the money that you were spending on that, guess what? You can put that into your savings account, which will help you get to your goal that much faster. It's all about choices and trade-offs. So if you cut out the unnecessary expenses, your budget is tight, now it's time to actually increase your income. Now, earlier in the year, I made a video about some side hustles that you could implement to earn some extra money. If you're interested in checking that video out, make sure to click the link above. So if your budget is extremely tight, you've cut a lot of unnecessary expenses, adding that side hustle is going to maybe 2x or 3x the speed that it's going to take for you to get to your goal of saving your first $10,000. Now, if you're getting some value from this video, consider subscribing, and while you're at it, hit that like button. I would really appreciate it. Now, the 7th step in this process, and to be completely honest with you, it could have been the first step, is avoiding debt at all costs. One thing that I always say is debt is the #1 killer of your ability to build wealth. And if you currently have some debt, now is the perfect time to start addressing that and paying that off. So if your budget is extremely tight and you have been cutting costs from your expenses, you can allocate some of that money to paying off that debt, especially if it's high interest debt. And an additional thing that you can do is if you picked up a side hustle to help speed up your savings process, you'll want to allocate the money from that side hustle to paying off that debt. So at this point, we could be saving money and paying off debt at the same time. Because the more debt that you carry, the longer it's going to take for you to hit your goals. And the next step in the process that I followed to save my first $10,000 was just being consistent. Now, I can tell you throughout the process of saving your first $10,000, there's going to be bumps in the road. There's going to be some times where you may not be able to save as much money as you thought you were on a particular month, or life just happens and you have to actually spend a little bit more money on just life. Things happen, but one of the things that you have to make sure that you do is you don't give up. Stay consistent and make sure that you follow the plan. One thing to keep in mind as you're going through this process is not everyone is going to have the same timeline to save this money. So some people may be able to save their first $10,000 in 6 months. Some people may be a year, and some people it may take 18 months or more to actually save the money. The thing that you have to remember is you are on your own timeline. So whatever goal that you set from the beginning, Just make sure that you follow that. And any additional income that you bring in or any expenses that you cut will ultimately get you to your goal that much faster. So those are the exact steps that I followed in order to save my first $10,000. I set a goal in place and I remain consistent throughout the entire process. So now that you've saved your first $10,000 and you're looking to start investing in the stock market, but you're not sure where and how to get started, make sure to check out the next video.